and then that person just starts slamming and projecting all of their garbage on you. And it is so difficult when you feel like someone is literally out to destroy you, to literally keep that self-awareness of that slide. Like, oh no, this is just self-projection. They're just projecting this stuff on me. You're like,
What if we surrendered what we quietly knew was true?
Hey viewers, we're picking up the episode where we left off in the last episode and hope you enjoy the continuation of this. So here we go. Now we're moving on to projective identification. This is a really important, complex cognitive defense because it's basically, as you can see this graphic that Notebook came up with, I was just like, wow, this is incredible the way that it put this into metaphor. It's basically saying that we all have our own experiences, and our experiences, as we know from the looking at the self-development episodes, is that we're all parts and pieces that affected our attitudes, our perceptions of emotions, our beliefs that we get then from our behaviors and our interactions of the world, and that develops our sense of self. Well, people typically, when they want to have power, don't want to feel their feelings of inadequacy, their feelings of ineptness, or their fears of that the imposter syndrome, as I talk a lot about in hierarchical models. So what they do is they want to take these pieces of themselves and often project them onto other people. And that's when often they want power over. This can be parents, this can be siblings, it can be teachers, it can be people in all walks of life, politicians, it can be our doctors, that we typically then project our own feelings of self into other people, and we call them the names, the losers, they're inept, they're stupid, they're failures. We project that onto them when deep down inside we feel we have to hide that, not only from others, but we're really hiding it from ourselves. So I just want people to take a minute to let's look around your families, look within yourself, look within the world at large around us. We see this almost as, to me, it's an epidemic these days to protect the self. And to me, what's slipping back into what can be seen as hierarchy. But the gift I see in this, talking about the obstacle becoming opportunity, is for us to see why it doesn't work, because it's not based on honor or integrity.
no, and I think a really big one that most people can relate to is a dissolved relationship. And whether that be a marriage, a partnership, a friendship, whatever that relationship was that has dissolved, and likely not in a good way, you're going to see that slide. You're going to be able to relate to that, because a lot of times when things don't work out, we go back to the first slide of ego, and then that person just starts slamming and projecting all of their garbage on you. And it is so difficult when you feel like someone is literally out to destroy you, to literally keep that self-awareness of that slide. Like, oh no, this is just self-projection. They're just projecting this stuff on me. You're like,
Right.
but it's not nice, and it makes me feel awful, and they're spreading rumors about me, or I'm in a legal situation, or they're harming my child, or the mental anguish that is associated with that slide, I think is massive and not to be understated, because it's really difficult. I think when you're in the height of a storm, that slide to me speaks the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard to keep self-awareness when the storm is raging. All you're thinking of is protection, protection, protection of me and my children, or those around me, or those who are being affected by it. That's why it's hard to work on yourself. And I applauded your audience, because this is not easy work. It's not easy to then look inside and go, okay, wait, does this have anything to do with me?
Yes.
And is this in fact an opportunity for me to grow as a person? Like, that's literally like turning it on its ear, right? Like, not only is all this crap happening to me, but now you want me to see it as good. And the answer is yes. Like, how can you find this? I'm gonna shitstorm. How can you take it and look at it as a blessing. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's not this magical mind shift like, oh, this is all great. No, it's awful. It sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you can somehow start to change and understand the dynamics beneath it, that there's multi-dimensional layers, you're going to get out of the storm not only faster, but you are going to be so much better off. You're going to be stronger. You're going to be
Right.
happier. The clarity that you have, like for me, it feels like somebody just like removed my beer goggles. And I'm like, oh, this is how life is supposed to be. And like,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that I don't have crap days, but my crap days, I truly adopt the Tony Robbins, like life is happening for me and not to me. And every single time I have that bad day or if somebody's projecting onto me, it's like,
Tony
oh,
got that from me, by the way.
I think he did. And I would sue if I were you. I would, that's, that was
I knew
copyrighted.
I should have trademarked it.
You
Damn.
should have trademarked it. But it's true. And he's not the only one who has said it, right?
Right.
Like we've
Yeah.
all said it so many people have said it in so many different
Yeah.
ways. I mean, it's biblical, it's Tony Robbins. I've heard it from David Guillaume and Kabbalah. It is it is 100% accurate. And that's why it crosses so many platforms that if you can truly look at a situation and go, how can I grow from this? Like, what is this stirring up in me? And if you can
Right.
feel that, then you know, oh, there's my correction. Like
Right.
I'm feeling lack. I'm feeling lack of self-worth. And if you can work on that, it's like,
Right.
oh, well, thank you for showing me
Yeah.
that I have something to work on for myself. And that's how you switch it. That's how you do that. But
Right.
it's so hard.
And that's why I often encourage people in the middle of the shitstorm, bring your umbrella and bring your raincoat,
Yeah.
and that is,
Galoshes,
yeah,
overall.
exactly. And a nose pin sometimes, and keep your mouth closed, face guard, because it starts flying. But that's the thing, is that's what we're helping to do, is that so, and think through this and what you're offering, and is to what becomes our raincoat, our face guard, our galoshes, our hat and umbrella, are all the understandings that we have for ourselves and others, to realize, yes, it is not, a lot of times it's not personal to us. And that's what we want to understand. Now, a lot of the stuff that's going on isn't about the people that's being attacked. It's about the people that are doing the attacking and what's going, and it's all misdirection. And that's what we want to see, is how it's all just often misdirection, and it's lacks truth, honor, and integrity. So we got slides to cover. So as we move into next, now we're getting to more simplistic defenses, denial and somatization. These, some people might call them immature. I say that these are some of the earlier, they're just natural, early, younger age defenses that we use. I didn't do it. Denial. I didn't color all over the wall. No, that didn't happen. The dog did it. My infant sister, who can only like waddle or roll back and forth and suck on their pacifier, did it. And then we have somatization that can also start early. I have a headache, or this hurts, or that hurts. And what we learn with, to me, what socializes somatization is the idea that when I experience pain, I often get attention. So if I fall and I cry, I get picked up, I get taken care of. And I know I learned that at an early age. So when I was a kid, and I would be under a lot of stress, and I had a lot of stress with being bullied, and my brother died and all those things, I would have headaches and neck aches. That was a family thing that we had. When I got older, I got back problems. I still have back problems. I had all these other aches and pains, and they were real. It's not that they're not real, but what I realized also is that when my dad was under a lot of stress, he'd get migraines and he'd be in bed on weekends. And that was the only time he rested, was when he had a backache or he had a headache. I still have, again, all my aches and pains, that I look and ask myself, okay, what is this about? And with so many people, I help them to see that their somatization is often about deeper issues, even if they're getting like a migraine, or they're sick or whatever, if something happens before their appointment's coming in. I'm like, is there something you feel like you might be avoiding? And looking at that and that process of avoidance, and then even the denial. What emotion do you feel afraid to see or acknowledge? Often denial is not wanting to feel guilt, not wanting to feel shame, not wanting to feel failure, not wanting to feel stupid, not wanting to feel unlovable. So it's avoidance often of pain-based emotions, whereas it can also be, I don't want to feel afraid. So it can be an avoidance of fear-based emotions too. So look at these as and recognize them as real simple quick defenses that have often been socialized through our life that are helping us to avoid, to not deal with things, and that either we're looking for attention or we're looking for an excuse for why we don't have to deal with something, or we just don't want something to have happened that has affected me.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I can relate to on this is that I had to be very honest with myself and that I was in victim mode. I had some pretty awful things happen in my life, and I had every right to, like, I could tell you my whole story and you would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry and that's awful and that happened to you and that happened to your children." And it's like, yes, but there becomes a danger of becoming a victim because you do get the attention and you do get, and then you don't have to show up, right? Like, if you don't show, you don't have to worry about working out, taking care of yourself, your home, you know what I mean? Like, it gives you an excuse. And I'm speaking for me personally. Like, it became easy to be the
Mhm,
victim,
mhm,
and there came a day that I just remember, like, I'm annoying myself. Like, I don't want to talk about this anymore.
mhm,
I don't want to explain it anymore. I don't want
mhm.
anybody else's pity, sympathy. And it really just was like a light switch for me, that it's like, you're not a victim. Like,
Yeah,
what? You're defining yourself as a victim? What are you doing? Because
right,
what I didn't realize was I was shielding myself and blocking myself off from so many other opportunities and blessings, because
yeah,
then I'm giving off that energy of like,
right,
woe is me.
yeah,
So I completely relate. And I think, again, it's that fine line between, you are 100% justified
yeah.
to feel victimized when you are in fact you are a victim.
Well,
But then
you said it
conversely,
you said it perfectly. Instead of it, you said it as feeling or being victimized, but feeling victimized is when I say when, and we talked a lot about here
Mhm.
about victims, persecutors, rescuers, instigators, justified persecutors, martyrs. All these are roles that I talk about in that hierarchical model. And that when somebody's a victim, it happened to me. If it happened to me, it's not my fault. If it's not my fault, there's no blame, no shame, no guilt, no failure, no responsibility. I'm off the hook. So what the key thing that you're talking about that is, you were able to justify and rationalize and maximize that other person's behaviors and minimize your own behavior as long as you stayed in that. So you were, have been, and very well versed in those cognitive defenses in that. And then you had that talk with yourself that says, no, people play the victim as long as they choose to stay in the role.
yes,
Somebody can victimize you, me, anybody, everybody, as long as they don't choose to feel like the victim. And we can look at history at people like a Gandhi, at a Nelson Mandela, at a Jesus, at all these people in life that might have felt victimized or were victimized. They didn't stay in the role because they
no, they did not.
recognize their own power. And that's the difference in shifting, as we're saying, from seeing the way we use our defenses to protect our own ego, our own self, our ideal, our feel, our real selves, and to move into equity and finding our truth through all these opportunities and experiences that we're growing from and that life brings to us, rather than happen to us. So, and that's why I say, when we're the victim, life happens to us. When we're the victor, life happens for us. And that's how we
Amen.
move from victim to victor. So now we're talking about more advanced defenses of humor and sublimation. Humor is being able to make light of something, and I'm going to kind of move through these a little quickly. And sublimation is basically taking what's happening and finding a better way. How can I make compost from this pile of horse crap I've got, and channeling it in positive ways. Or as I say from the Zen, is how do I make medicine from suffering? And that's what we want to do, is to see all these different messages in life that can help us to take what felt like pain and make it growth. I choose to not see as pain as fear leaving the body. No, fear has a positive purpose. Pain has a positive purpose. The fear this bumper stickers, to me, that is a defense against acknowledging it. Yes, I feel fear. I am more powerful than you. No, fear works with you. and the no fear, again, that's just denial. So, I see all those things that our culture and as socialized men to have to look strong and now even right. And women have been more socialized. And this is what we're talking about in the combination of those things of women having to be seen as strong and right and good. It used to be about good. And then it became about good and right. And then it became about good, strong, and right. And that's where that curse of perfectionism. So I would tell you, Tara, knowing you, you're not just a recovering control freak, you're a recovering perfectionist. And so am I.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
so I
yeah.
say that, and it's, I have my 12-step program.
We
And
meet on Tuesdays.
exactly. Lord, I acknowledge the things that can.
No, it starts with hello. My name is Tara.
Oh,
It's been 12
yeah.
weeks since I straightened a picture frame on my wall.
So we'll just create another podcast called the Recovering Perfectionist Society. So our signal, now this is about where we start to get into conflict. So the signal, when we feel threat, that's the first sign, is we feel a threat, a challenge to our power, and then we'll start with defenses minimally. That's when we first might start to bring in denial. Well, this isn't happening. They didn't do that. They didn't mean that. And or we might even deny our actions to that other person. And so our first attempt is going to be to logic it out. And as we logic it out, it might feel like a threat to the other person. But when we feel that threat, and then anxiety often comes again. Remember, helplessness, that I can figure this out or solve it. I start to feel like I'm scrambling. Then other emotions are going to come up. So that's where we want to see the desire to protect our ideal self, often deeper our feel self. And in the moment, we don't even see our real self, because we still want to see our real self at one level, when what we're really showing to the world is something that is often unidentifiable to ourselves. And that's basically what you've been recognizing and owning, and recognizing your feelings of victimhood. Now, this is the next piece that is really important. So I always used to talk about protective emotions, and just in the last 3 months, I started to think, you know what? There's more than protective emotions. There are primary protective emotions, and there are secondary protective emotions. And in really looking at the world and what's going on in the world, and seeing that this is not about self-protection, this is about destruction and wanting to destroy another person. So again, this is where I'll give the credit to Notebook. It came up with the idea, the concept, the metaphor of the primary being the shield and the secondary being the retaliation. So our primary protective emotions, as people, versed in the podcast will know, um, anger, rage, arrogance, flippancy, defiance, sarcasm, hatred, and irritation. So for those who may not know, in my music channel, I have a song called Not the Villain, which is about how the protective emotions are seen by other emotions and the self as being the bad guys. And it talks about what their role from an equity standpoint truly was. I also have another one called, I think it's Eight Protective Shields, but it talks about each individual emotion that they're singing individually. Here's what I am, and here's why I'm here, and here's what I do for you. So I'm trying to constantly shift the script on how people see these protective emotions hierarchically, to help people understand them equitably. However, hierarchically, those primary shield are there just to help us to hold on to our power, and then kind of either deflect and or increase. So we want to either just keep the balance, that we might start with explanation, so cognitive defenses, and then to advance a little bit to get somebody to back off. If I move to protective, retaliatory, secondary protective emotions, those emotions to me come from previous hurts or pains that haven't been resolved, that the person feels betrayed or violated, humiliation, embarrassed often. They feel sick and tired of feeling those emotions that come with anger, rage, and that seething hatred. That anger, rage, and hatred aren't enough. So then it moves to the acts, to me, that we might often call evil, that are really the emotions are cruelty, vengeance, revenge, manipulation. It's about making sure, not only do I want you not to mess with me ever again, but I will make sure that you, potentially your kids and their kids and everybody connected to you suffers and feels the pain. Look at around at our world right now and see this and the epidemic of this, because now people feel justified. They become justified persecutors from originally feeling like victims, and they're justifying heinous acts. They're justifying using, and it's been done for years, but now it's just becoming more almost accepted that I use the legal system as a weapon to destroy, first to gain control and then to try to destroy. I use my neighbors, I use social media, I use my kids, I use custody issues at times, and the things that are saying and are done in ways that we have to look at, that where have we stepped to and what have we done and where have we gone to, and then understanding that there are times that our desire to protect and care for the people around us are justified. So be careful not to throw the label out just to throw it out. You got to look at the whole picture on this and really seeing this. So I welcome your thoughts on this, Tara, and where you're at with this and seeing this in your life and the world around us.
Yeah, in my life, I have most definitely been the recipient of the latter of everything you just said. And a lot of the self-worth work is looking in and seeing, okay, why did that happen to me, and why did I react the way I reacted? What can I learn from that experience? And culturally right now, it's a really hard time. I mean, it is. I struggle with it every day. I struggle with my kids every day, with their thoughts, their opinions, and it's very hard to sometimes look inward and say, am I am I building a brick of a solid foundation, or am I a crack? Am I dissolving this foundation? And I think every word that comes out of your mouth, in every post and everything, the interaction that you have, as minimal as you feel it may be, is either building to the foundation or you're cracking the foundation.
Mhm.
And that's being so self-aware of how you're presenting yourself into the world. And every slide that you just went through, making sure that you're not projecting any of those old wounds, trauma onto the next person that you're
Mhm.
encountering. Because I have found that when I go out into the world and I'm smiling and, hey, how are you, and just making eye contact with people, I can be a bigger light, which light spreads so much further, right?
Mhm.
Than if there's enough hatred, there's enough anger. I can't get trapped into that. And I know I'm kind of going all over the place and not really staying true to your slide, but I hope it's kind
Mhm.
of all encompassing, because I think it's so important right now, in during a time where we all feel very confused,
Yeah.
and for, at least for me, I know there are some people out there that are like, I'm not confused, this is black and white. I don't think we're in a black and white land right now.
And that's the
Or
song, "What If I Was Wrong? What if I was wrong? What if I've
yeah,
justified and rationalized these beliefs that I think are right?" And even then, I think what people can see today is they feel like this stuff that we're seeing is working. This trying to destroy people, it's working because it's evoking fear, and it's
yeah,
about seeking power over, not power with. And the problem is to me, it's awakening the opportunity to see it might be working short term. It's never worked in the long run. And we have evolved to the place to where we had been. And are there things to continue to tweak? Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And again, that's why we're here. And that's why you've grown through what you've grown through, experiencing the pain that you experienced over time, and you've turned it into growth. You've turned it into light. You found your light through the darkness. And I wanted to, you reminded me of, there's the Japanese art of taking broken dishes or pottery, and they take it and they put it back together with gold, connecting all those pieces. And that's kind of, to me, when you make a mistake, you break something, you put it back together and you make it one again. And it's more beautiful in that art than it was, before that. So what we're talking about here, and what you're really talking about, is the idea of the hierarchical trap. This win-lose idea that that is just being force-fed down us, when we've seen in our life equity. We know in many of our religions we're taught equity. Yet often people who fall into wanting to follow the religion end up behaving hierarchically, and it becomes a competition versus what should be a we versus me. And that's where we want to see these traps will never help us to find inner peace. It will always be brokered and will be temporary and will break in the long run. So as we see this and this idea of wanting to avoid what looks weak to be strong, that's why I say you found the strength in recognizing your feelings of guilt and shame and fear and doubt and all these emotions that were seen as weak. And that's really the key to this whole process of understanding. And then what has moved to this escalation that moves from logic to primary protective emotions to potentially secondary protective emotions. Even with parents, often this happens with their kids, that when I was a kid, I never would have gotten away with this. I'm going to show you. And they experience vengeance from their parents at times, and then they've exacted that on their own kids, and they justify it and rationalize it. So we want to see that this is a trap. It is a trap, and it is this thing that is going nowhere good, because we compromise trust, we lose faith in our concept of faith and how that helps us to find faith and belief and trust in ourselves, faith and believe and trust in our family, faith and believe and trust in our community, and in the world at large. That we live on one planet, and it doesn't have to be about who wins or who survives. It's about how can we do this together, and we have the resources to do this together. Yet there are a lot of people out there who want to think that there's not enough to go around, and that somebody's got to win and others got to lose.
Which is so false. It's so false. I mean, I always say, imagine a world where everybody is living their best life. There's enough for everybody. And I think there's a lot of vulnerability simultaneously with fear
Mhm.
when you have to listen to somebody who you do not agree with. And
Mhm.
you have to open yourself up and you have to hear, even if you vehemently disagree with it. Maybe it's the reporter in me. There have been plenty of times that I had to interview people that I did not agree with. I had to
Right.
interview murderers,
Yeah.
but my job was to figure out, why did you do that? Why are you
Mhm.
thinking that way? And when
Yes.
you start to break down the ego, the fear, get the vulnerability, it allows you to communicate. And once you can at least communicate, it doesn't mean that you have to agree. You really open up a much wider platform for
Yes.
peace, not only globally, which sounds very kumbaya, but also for yourself.
Well, yeah, and that's now where we're moving to this idea of breaking this code, moving from hierarchy to equity. Seeing that we're all tied together, we're all in this together, we're all each other's teachers, and we're all each other's students. This is emotion school. This is where we learn about every emotion and the value of every emotion to help us find our way back to love. This is where we understand that cognitive defenses in the long run don't work. There are people in psychodynamic theory and other things, well, these help us to adapt to life. Yeah, if you want to keep a hierarchical world in place, I hope there's a day when we're all able to be as truthful and honest, and it will be evolution, it will be growth, and maybe we won't see this in our lifetime. But to me, it's people like you and me and all the others out there that are trying to teach this, that hopefully are going to reach critical mass to help people to see, yeah, I don't have to fall back in that hierarchical stuff. That doesn't work. It doesn't belong here. It does,
Yeah.
and this is what truly belongs. And I think that's what keeps coming back to us again and again in some of our greatest teachers through time, is moving from hierarchy to equity. And that is getting to that idea of emotional specificity that I teach, that every emotion has its positive purpose. Failure tells us it's time to learn. Guilt says it's time to repay, to repair, to fix what I did to somebody else that didn't might not have come from a place of love. Remember, though guilt, failure, shame, stupid, a lot of those emotions are used as weapon of control hierarchically to gain power over. Shame on you. You should feel guilty. What are you, stupid or something? And that's where we lose the ability to see those as valuable, and even overwhelm. The song I created called The Burden is all about overwhelm. And overwhelm helps us to step back, evaluate, and see, what is life here to teach me? What is this trying to show me? And what can I do with that? I think Tara might have had a heart out, so I'm going to go ahead and finish this from here. So what we're talking about is moving from reacting to responding. So in that, when we have these reactions, when we have these behaviors that we're just a pinball in life, and we're not seeing our way through it, then we're more likely to use cognitive defenses, protective emotions. We're more likely to minimize feelings that feel bad and or wrong and or weak. And that's where the core in this is to recognize our goal is to learn to respond, to see the purpose in our actions, our behaviors, and what's going on in our life so that we can find our way through it and make our way in life and see us as part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And that's the goal through this. So as we're continuing to work through these, what's the key is to sort the variables, to look at all these variables and see what's happening in life, and look at how do we repair not only the relationships between others outside of us, our relationships within ourselves and with parts of ourselves. And that's my work with people often, is I'm helping them to find the parts, the pieces, the places, the emotions, the beliefs, the attitudes, wherever they felt caught in time. And through that, then they see the relationships outside often fixing themselves, and or people realizing that they were having struggles with, realizing, oh, I have something to repair in myself. So that's why I always want people to learn to live an exemplary life, to find how to live their life as an example to themselves and then to others. And then we lose that hypocrisy and we're living that life of truth, honor, and integrity. And that is building for equity. And what I love, again, what LM, I give Notebook all the props, that true strength is not the thickness of the armor, it's the clarity of the response. And that's what we want to recognize, is our ability to choose to respond, to choose to understand the emotions that we are choosing to feel, and to see how we can roll through that. So as we move through this, um, again, sorry, Tara, I had lost your connection, it seems, but through this, realize how you use your cognitive defenses, how you might use your emotional defenses. Are you wanting to look good and or strong and or right? Because even people want to be seen as good and strong, good and right, strong and right, good and strong and right. All those situations where people are playing out their stuff, we want to recognize, and our stuff is we're going to show those emotions and defenses are going to play into that in the way that we react and respond. So see your power through this, and I hope you recognize the journey. And oh, wait, I think Tara has now just logged back in to say goodbye. So here she is. Let me add her to the stage, and here she is.
I love and hate technology. I don't know what happened. It was like, you're done. It was like, and that's a wrap. Before
The
you were done.
universe was like, your heart out is now.
I am so sorry. I don't know what happened. It just, anyway.
You roll with it, you know?
Like I said, life's not perfect. So I'll figure out what the blessing was in that later.
Yeah, I was just thanking you for joining the show and what you bring to it, and all your experiences and your spiritual angle, and look forward.
Thank you. This is such an honor and such a pleasure. You do an amazing job, and thank you for what you're doing. And again, to all of the viewers that do this, you guys are amazing. Like, if we can get more people to do this, this is how you change the world, in my opinion. 100%.
And I think the interesting thing is, when we first had our talk to, see if you wouldn't be on the show, and I said at the end, I said, this was an episode right here. And you're like, right, we're going to have no problems working together on this.
Not at all.
So yeah, it's great to have you a part of the show, and the song is running kind of in the background here again, just to play people out. So I'll be turning up the volume on that as we play people out, and I will look forward to having you on the next episode.
It will be an honor.
All right, take care, my friend.
Bye.
Bye. Until next time.